Coming to you live, it's In the Know with Mo. And now, Bella. Coming to you live, it's In the Know with Mo. And now, here's your host, Mo Vella.
Thank you, Mark. It's so great to be with all of you today. Mark Grimaldi, of course, that was my producer, the greatest producer in America in my eyes. Leslie Marshall and I think so anyway, right, Mark? But we love Mark. Thank you, Mark, for the intro. It's so good to have all of you back this week. My God, we started 2022 with a bang, and we are on a roll. And just you wait until you see who our guest is today. We are like, oh my God, on fire today with one of the leading global experts on education. It is a topic near and dear to my heart. You'll hear more about that in a second, and you'll hear more about her in just a minute. But as we start every week at In the Know with Mo, we start with our Moe-ment of Truth, M-O-E-M-E-N-T. And this week, I'm going to stick to a positive, optimistic, hopeful topic. And that is that we want to thank Justice Breyer for his incredible service on the Supreme Court and to our nation as a jurist, an outstanding jurist. And as he has announced his retirement, I'm just going to say that this week's Moment of Truth for me is a reminder of how incredible it's going to be to have in the, and I don't like the word liberal, I say in the inclusive, equality-oriented branch of the Supreme Court, we'll have 3 women. And what an amazing day that is going to be in America. 3 women, 3 women who look like our nation, a white Jewish woman, a Catholic Latina, and a soon-to-be African-American woman. What an incredible day. And I want to be partisan for 1 second in today's Moment of Truth. And it is the Democratic Party. And we as Democrats and progressives who will be bringing the nation that representation on the Supreme Court. I'm proud to be a Democrat when I see those things happening. Okay, that was my Moment of Truth. Positive, optimistic, hopeful. Now we move to a woman who I admire very greatly. In a minute when we start talking, I'm gonna talk about where we've met. I'm pretty sure I know, but I'm 60 now and I can't remember everything. Randi Weingarten is our guest today, president of the American Federation of Teachers, all 1.7 million members strong of the AFT, of course, a member of the AFL-CIO. We're talking about educators, teachers, school personnel, higher ed faculty and staff. We're talking about nurses as well and other healthcare professionals. We're talking about anybody involved in that education ecosystem, are members of the American Federation of Teachers. Randi is also an attorney. She went to Cardozo School of Law. She's an undergraduate of Cornell University. Practiced law on Wall Street, by the way. A lot of people don't remember this about you, Randi. But so Randi, I can't tell you seriously. I have to I'm having a gay moment. I'm getting a little choked up already at the beginning here. It's emotional for me to have you on because I'm so proud of you. And so Randi, let's go back for just a second. Did we serve on the GLAD board together?
Yes, we did.
That's what I thought.
That is when I first met the indefatigable, indescribable Mo Vella. And I remember, you were talking about something, and I remember kind of like sitting back, and I don't remember what it is anymore, Mo, but I remember sitting back and saying, okay, I knew him from all of his, jobs at the White House, but geez, he is smart and he is strategic and he is savvy and he is busting up all the bullshit in this meeting right now.
The last line is the one I'm proudest of, Randy. The last line is the one I'm proudest of.
I know.
Yeah, I remember us being on the board together, and I had been admiring your work for so long and admiring your leadership. And we're going to get to all of the education related questions and issues. We have a whole hour together. I am honored. I am. I just wanted you to know from the bottom of my heart, I'm honored to have you on the show today. But look, one of the things we do at In the Know with Mo is a little shocking to most of my guests because they're high profile people like you. And I always do something in the first segment and they're like, do we really have to do that? I'm like, yes, because I think people just see Randi Weingarten on CNN, on MSNBC, on Fox, on TV, in newspaper articles, op-eds. You're all over. You're a high profile figure, but people don't ever take a minute, and we do on my show. Let's talk about where were you born and what was your childhood like? Because to me, that is what made the Randi Weingarten we know today. And nobody goes back. So where were you born? And what was your childhood like, Randi?
Oy.
Oy vey, oy vey.
So I was born in about 20, 30 miles up north from New York City.
Okay.
In a place called New City, New York, in Rockland County,
Okay.
right next to Nyack, right, kind of by the Hudson River. And my grandparents on my mother's side came from the Ukraine. My grandfather was in medical school, Jewish, saw what was going on and escaped, and then was able to get, and this was not yesterday, obviously, but this was, in the turn of the last century, and but saw the pogroms, understood what was going on, and didn't finish medical school, escaped, and then was able to get his brothers out, and my grandmother's whole family. They all kind of grew up together in a little town called Kamnitz-Podolsk. And when we were going through all of my parents' things, both my parents have died. My father died a couple of years ago. But when we were going through all of the things in their house, I found my grandfather's diploma from high school.
Wow.
And so, and they grew, and my mother grew up in Nyack. My grandfather had two clothing stores, one in Haverstraw and one in Nyack. My mother was a school teacher in Nyack. My father was ultimately grew up in New York City, was an electrical engineer. My father got laid off from the firm that he was working in when I was a teenager. And that may be why. And my mother was on strike because of real justice issues and respect issues.
Yeah.
This was one of the longest teacher strikes in New York. It was the Nyack teacher strike for about 6 weeks. We had the Taylor law then, so which we still do, which meant that teachers lost 2 days' pay for every day they didn't work. So all I'm saying is that these kinds of things. So when people say, "Oh, it's somebody's fault when they're laid off," I think about my father crying, coming home, and work and looking for 2 years to find another engineering job. I think about my mother and her colleagues.
And strike.
Everyone in Nyack loved, but there was a real joker who was the superintendent who wanted to break these women's back. And so I think that may be why you just have to fight intolerance. You got to fight injustice. But ultimately, the way you fight it is in community with others. And that's, I think, what got me to the labor movement.
Joining forces. And this is why I asked this question in the first segment, because you see, now we see what your motivation, what your impetus is, right? And the impact that your childhood and that exposure, right, to watching your mom strike, to watching your father struggle through a layoff, right? And look at you now leading a 1.7 million people, right, who are teaching the children of people who are experiencing the exact same things, right?
That's right.
And
Exactly
so,
right.
I can't believe it. We're already to our first break. My goodness gracious, I knew this was going to happen. And when we come back, folks, do not go anywhere. We are just getting started with Randi Weingarten. It is going to be an amazing time together. As you can see, we're going to learn from Randi, and we're also going to be enlightened by Randi, because later in the show, we're going to talk about the current situation with teachers and our education system and her thoughts on the future. We'll see you just at the other side of the break.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey, sis, missed you this morning. Kim told me you weren't feeling well, so I'm just doing a self-care check.
Oh, thank you, friend.
How you doing?
Girl, listen, my energy was so low because I didn't eat breakfast when I got up, so I had to miss virtual yoga with y'all.
Trust me, I understand.
But I'm doing much better now that I've eaten, so I'm back on track.
Great. In that case, let's get some steps in tonight. I'll come over and we can walk around the lake.
Sounds good. Appreciate you being in my business, too. Now, let me get in yours. Did you check your blood pressure today?
I did that and my squats, okay?
Okay.
High blood pressure is not going to be my friend if I can help it. See you at 6?
Let's get it. See you then.
Now more than ever, it's important that we protect our hearts and the hearts of those we love. Check in on one another and be a part of a healthy blood pressure movement. Rally your squad to take the online pledge at releasethepressure.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1908. That was the day the United States Supreme Court ruled that bans on yellow dog contracts were unconstitutional in the case of Adair versus United States. The case served to nullify the Erdman Act of 1898, which banned such contracts for those who worked on moving trains in the railroad industry. The Erdman Act had been a response to the 1894 Pullman strike. At the time, the federal government smashed workers striking against deep wage cuts and for union recognition with Eugene V. Debs's American Railway Union. Seeking to prevent any disruptions along the railroads, the Erdman Act banned any contracts that required workers to renounce unions in order to gain employment, recognize the right of union organizations as a means of collective bargaining, and established mechanisms for the arbitration of grievances. In 1906, William Adair, a supervisor with the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, fired a member of the Order of Locomotive Firemen for his membership. Adair was indicted under the Erdman Act, found guilty, and fined. He then appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court and won. The Supreme Court ruled that the Erdman Act violated the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment and served to supersede the Commerce Clause in the Constitution. The court argued that the railroad's employment decisions were a protected right so long as they did not injure the public interest. Congress could not criminalize the firing of an employee because of union membership. Dissenting opinions centered on the potential for renewed labor conflict. Workers would have to wait almost 25 years for yellow dog contracts to be banned in all industries with the passage of the 1932 Norris-LaGuardia Act. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to In the Know with Mo. I'm Mo Vela, your host. I almost said your guest, your host, and I have the honor and privilege of having Randi Weingarten as our guest today, the president of the American Federation of Teachers. You can follow the organization on Twitter at AFT Union, and you can follow Randi at RWEINGARTEN on Twitter. Randi, so good to have you. Okay, so now we know kind of what the seed that was planted in your youth, right? That has now explains a lot of your leadership and activism and your passion for combating the wrongs, if you will. And it's no accident, I don't think, as we said earlier, that you and I met serving on the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation Board. A very natural fit for both you and me in careers that we've been fighting injustices. I want to move now in this segment a little bit too, because I think that too many people don't really know. They just see Randi Weingarten, president of AFT. What is the American Federation of Teachers, right? I like to go back to the basics.
Right.
Who is this group of people, right? Why did they come together? And why is it important what you guys do?
So one of the things, if you can see it behind me, this sign, that's poster that says, I inspire, I encourage, I empower, I nurture, I activate, I motivate. Change the world, I am a teacher. And then one next to it says, we clean it, cook it, fix it, drive it, paint it, type it, schedule it, plant it, file it. We support, love, and believe in our students. And that's from our paraprofessionals. Now I have both of them up because the one about a teacher, a colleague of mine actually gave that to me when I was teaching in the 1990s. And I have that poster framed, and every office I live in after I taught, I bring that framed poster. And I was talking about it on, I don't know, I think somebody saw it. I was talking about it on Facebook, and the artist actually wrote to me in message and says, I'm one of your members. I actually did that for our shop steward of my school. And that shop steward was the one who gave it to me. And I was like, oh my God. But
wow.
But the reason I tell that story is that this is who my members are. This is, we're teachers, we're paraprofessionals, we're bus drivers, we're guidance counselors, we're education assistants. We now represent, we're the second largest nurse union now. We represent nurses in the private and the public sector, about 200,000 nurses, respiratory therapists, all these people who during COVID were sometimes the only person in a room.
Yeah.
Somebody was sick on a ventilator.
Absolutely.
We're the tenured professors and the adjunct professors in public colleges all throughout the country. I mean, we represent all of the University of California professors, and just were able to negotiate, we almost struck, but negotiate a contract for the lecturers that gives them some real due process and job security for the first time ever. We represent public service workers, from correction workers in Montana to the people who actually make sure the water is okay.
Yeah.
Lawyers in Albany. So, I mean, we're 1.7 million people. We're pretty much, we've grown over 250,000 people in the last 10 years. That's the only union that has grown this much.
Wow.
But what the through line for all of this is that I have the honor of representing people who make a difference in other people's lives,
Mm.
whether they are children or patients or just people who live in communities.
Yeah,
And
everyday
that's-
Americans. Yeah.
And that's who I represent. That's who I have the honor to represent. And you know, and we think a lot about not only the people we represent, but the people we serve, because
Yeah.
what my members do is they make a difference in the lives of others. And we need to support those others. We need to support communities.
Yeah.
And we need to support them supporting communities, which means that in the middle of COVID, you have to make sure that workplaces are safe,
Yeah.
so that you can have in-school instruction,
Right.
so that nurses are not sick themselves.
Yeah.
In you have to make sure that people get a decent wage.
Yeah,
It's the
absolutely.
inequality in America is abusive. It's heinous.
It's mind-boggling,
It's
isn't it? It's just
mind-boggling.
mind-boggling. Yeah.
And so
Randy, I don't know if I've never told you this, I don't think. Well, first of all, by the way, I want to say something. The growth in your particular union membership, let's not undervalue and underestimate that is a result of leadership. And you know, that leadership sitting on the other side of this Zoom call with me. So congratulations on you, on your impact you're having, right? Second of all, I am the grandson, son, brother, and uncle of teachers. And yes, and my dad, may he rest in peace, used to always say that in heaven, right, we knew that next to each other there was, Daddy used to say there was a hero's corner in heaven. and he would say in that hero's corner will always be teachers, healthcare workers, and our law enforcement, right? And so, but I just wanted to say, you know, to your membership and to our viewers today and our listeners today, the one thing that the through line, as you put it, is that there is not one person, not one of us on the face of the earth that has not been impacted by a teacher.
Yep.
Teachers play such an integral, crucial role in our lives, Randy. And I don't know why we pay them less than we do a professional athlete.
Well, and in some ways, Mo, it's even worse in that for the same skills and knowledge, people in the private sector get $10,000 to $20,000 more.
More.
And so you wonder, even pre-COVID, why you had a teacher shortage. It's because it's not that people don't want to become teachers.
Economics.
It's the economics of it, and part of what's going on right now with the bashing and the trashing is that I think that regular Americans actually understand how important teachers are to them and their families. So what you're seeing is the right wing is trying to cut off that connection.
And we were going to come right back, Randy, and pick it up right there on the trashing and the bashing. Okay. Don't go anywhere. I did it again.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
As Lyndon Johnson used to say about special interests trying to get his support to pass some blatantly self-serving legislation, they can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. Yet, chicken shit is all that the corporate health complex has to work with as it frantically tries to defend its current system of mass malpractice known as corporate health care. After all, as most Americans have learned the hard way, the corporatized care of profiteering insurance giants, big pharma, and hospital chains grossly overcharge us while constantly trying to shortchange or outright deny care to millions of our families. So, unable to win public support on their own merit, the corporatists and their hired political hacks are going all out to continue their gouging and keep control of America's dysfunctional system. They're now running a multi-million-dollar PR and lobbying campaign of lies to trash and kill all reforms that would deliver quality, comprehensive care to everyone at far less cost than they can deliver. Masquerading as a partnership for America's healthcare future, the profiteers warn ominously that such reforms as Medicare for All or a public option for health insurance would take away people's choice and our control over health care. Hello, we presently have no choice or control. Our care is managed by a handful of insurance, drug, and hospital monopolists whose primary objective is not improving our health, but feathering their own cushy nests. And the undeniable, ugly truth is that they can only continue ripping us off by killing real reform. This is Jim Hightower saying that's one reason the American Medical Association and others are dropping out of the partnership's political front. Honest healthcare practitioners no longer believe it's in their interest or the public's to be part of its chicken PR campaign.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to In the Know with Mo. I'm Mo Vela, your host. Oh my God, what an amazing week for us here at the show to have Randi Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, 1.7 million members, not just teachers. I want to be clear because I think this is really important. Her union is 1.7 million folks of people involved in the education ecosystem, from teachers and paraprofessionals and staff, all the way over to higher ed faculty and adjunct professors and nurses and healthcare professionals, respiratory therapists, we just heard her say. So it's not just teachers. And I think it's important that we point that out because Randi's leadership is so incredible and so strong that she's making a difference in so many millions of people's lives, not just her members, but the people they serve is what I heard her say, and the people that they impact. And I love that about Randi. So, okay, Randi, now let's get to current times. I mean, I'm sure everyone's watching going, when is he finally going to talk about, like, you know, teachers and the classroom today? Well, we're now going to do it because I would dare say, look, we've had strikes. You used your mom striking in Nyack, New York as an example of what motivated you, kind of planted the seed in you to do what you do. We've had strikes for decades in the country, right? We've had all kinds of dissension. We've had strife. But I think that, in my humble opinion, COVID has created an unprecedented environment for our education system, teachers, and for parents and students. Would you agree with that? And if so, what are you seeing out there? And what is the pulse out there? What is happening in real time with this COVID situation?
So I would say, Mo, that this is the most challenging situation I have ever faced as an adult.
I thought so.
It's just, and everyone, so it's a mess. It's just a mess. But you have to get through. You can either try to get through these kind of intense challenges with, love and grace and will, and trying to make a difference in the lives of others, and bring people together and lift people up. Or you can do the blame and the shame and the chaos and confusion and grievance. And you see both of those strategies, for lack of a better word, operating in our political context. But as a educator and as a trade unionist, in this moment in time, I have to try to do everything in my personal power and my professional power to help the recovery and to help people thrive. I mean, I have the honor, if you think about it, that there's three things that actually really help regular folks, whether it's in America or the world. It's a democracy where there is self-governance as opposed to the rule of others where you have no voice.
Right.
So it's a democracy, and that means having the franchise to vote and those votes being counted in a real way.
Yeah.
It's education as the great equalizer.
That's what I call it, Randi.
What?
And that's what I've been calling it for decades. Yeah.
And then the third is, for regular folks, it's actually having a trade union movement, because that's the driver of higher wages. There's nothing else other, you can vote and get people in office, but that's really the driver. So I'm a high school social studies teacher, so I kind of sit at each of those values and try to integrate them all. And that's what gives regular folks power. So on classrooms, on education, what education has done for years, people didn't even think about it, is it was kind of the foundation of people's lives.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't have kids, the school year started in September, it ended in May or June, and and
our lives all evolved around.
Our lives evolved around that, and around kids being in schools, things like that. So
programs, everything.
Exactly. So when all of a sudden you have the first pandemic in over a century.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just last 2.5 nanoseconds.
Chaos, yeah.
Chaos and disruption. And so we, so from, January of 2020, February of 2020, Sarah Nelson, the head of the flight attendants, and I did a press conference that first week of February to say to Trump and others, you are lying to us. We know something's going on. Let us plan for it. Don't just all of a sudden one day say, oh, we got COVID or coronavirus here. So what essentially happened is, of course he didn't, because he was more concerned about himself and his own political prospects.
Right.
So we go March, April, May, June of 2020.
Losing people.
And with all of that. So you think about school children, and you think about my members. School children have lost their grandparents.
Yeah.
At the beginning, they lost, and you think about Black and brown Native folks who had not, where there were inequities, and they had more of a laboring. This was more disproportionate. So, and then all of the disruptions of the 2021 school year. And then we start this year well. In our union, we did a $5 million campaign in terms of back to school. See, now I'm doing this back to school and back to whatever. And we get every school open.
Yeah.
And that was in the middle of Delta. And then as we're really, really, really going, Omicron starts.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, teachers, let me just say two more things. Number one, the enemy here is a pandemic that zigzags. It doesn't go, there's no straight line here.
No.
It's not as if anybody has a looking glass that they're going to figure out.
No predictability. Yeah, no predictability.
So what teachers have been doing and education support personnel is, whether it was remote or hybrid or in person, we have tried to be the lifeline for kids and try to create as much normalcy and calmness and a focus on work for kids and their parents as possible. Yep. And I'm going to say this as well, that from April 2020, a month into the pandemic, my union, we put out the first report that said, this is how we get kids back, because we knew from the beginning that it is important to be in school. The thing we asked is, let's make sure it's safe enough,
right,
so that our members don't get seriously ill or die.
Right.
And I don't think that's too much to ask.
I was about to say the same thing.
Exchange of knowing that being in school was so important. So from April 2020, we put out the first report. And what we've tried to do every step of the way is to get kids back in school and stay in school. And last thing I'll say is, and we know that's only a first step, because then the harder work is the recovery and thriving.
Well, and Randi, first of all, I was happy to see a poll recently that showed that the majority of Americans are not blaming teachers. They're actually in great numbers supporting teachers and understand that the enemy is COVID. I was happy to see that. And then when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about how you at AFT, at the American Federation of Teachers, have partnered with NewsGuard to stop the misinformation campaigns that so many, or I call it the hateful and ridiculous propaganda that so many people are out there promoting. I want to talk about that on the other side of the break. And I also want to talk in the last segment a little bit more about the article you wrote about what it's going to take to get back into school and stay in school.
Sure.
Because I think at the end of the day, that's what parents want to hear, as you said in that article that you so brilliantly wrote, right? When the kids can't go to be at school, that means the parents can't go do their jobs, right? It disrupts the entire daily life of millions of people. So we'll be right back. I just stopped myself. I held my hand and didn't point. Yes, exactly. We'll be right back with Randi Weingarten. We've got an incredible last segment to go. Don't go anywhere. Thank you.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. We show up differently, worship differently, and have found new ways to express our love and support to family and friends. But now there are vaccines, and they are the first step that lets us get back into the things we miss most, like spreading the word without spreading concern, girls tripping instead of solo sipping, brunching instead of late night munching, and talking smack with a side of mac and cheese. It's okay to have questions about COVID-19 vaccines.
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Is it safe?
Can I trust it?
What about pre-existing conditions?
Now get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
(911), what's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WAC, where we shine a light on our callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. This time on Code WAC, what is the clearest path for single payer in America? Can state-based legislation like California's Assembly Bill 1400 point the way? We recently spoke to Dr. Paul Song, president of Physicians for a National Health Program, California, to get his take. Why do you think the governor has been silent on AB 1400?
I think that he's very close to other organizations. It's no secret that he is very close to Dustin Corcoran, who is the head of the CMA, the California Medical Association. In fact, that French Laundry dinner that he was criticized for, Dustin Corcoran was there. And I think that he has maintained close ties to people in the insurance industry as well. Of all the people here in the state of California getting private insurance, the majority of them are getting it from Kaiser. So Kaiser is quite powerful here in the state. Over the last several years, they've actually spent more money on lobbying than I think almost every other industry. So all of these special forces and interests have much greater access to the governor than, unfortunately, we the people.
So who will be the biggest winners if AB 1400 does pass?
Well, I think especially all those people on Medi-Cal would greatly benefit. I think several people who are getting employer-sponsored health care, which is woefully inadequate, that have too high copays and deductibles.
Get the full Code WAC story on progressivevoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code WAC wherever you find your podcasts. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. Until next time, stay healthy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to In the Know. Now, last week, Mark Grimaldi, my incredible, indomitable producer, you promised me we were going to have, okay, my Frank Sinatra song. Randy, we just have this hard rock that Mark is into, and I'm like, I'm 60. That wasn't even like in my, all right. Randy, I made a promise we were going to do at least one Sinatra song. Does that not age me? Okay, so we are here today with, I'm so sad. We're going to have you back, and I know it's hard to get you. And we are so honored and privileged to have had you today, Randy, for the whole hour. It means so much to me. You have no idea. I from the bottom of my heart, it means so much to me. And but if we can get you back in the next few months, I want to have you back because we're just getting started. But I do want to spend the last segment talking about what does the short-term future look like when it comes to education and our teachers and students. And because I think the parents that are listening and watching right now, their number one concern, of course, is not just, I want my kid back in school so that I can go on with my career and my professional life, but also I want my kid back in a safe school. I want my kids' teachers to be safe and healthy, right? So what is it, you wrote an article, like what's it gonna take to stay in school? So give us the Randi Weingarten tutorial here on what is it gonna take for us moving forward to have some semblance of normalcy, as you put.
So there's like 4 things we have to do. One is we have to have we have a lot of tools now, so we know how to keep schools open and we know how to keep schools safe, at least through this Omicron variant. And so we need to do those things. And so I call that number 1, and I'll get back to what they are in a minute. But that's what we need. That's how to have those safety protocols, including as many people as possible getting vaccinated and boosted. It's really important. That's number 1. But number 2 is we really have to create kind of confidence, trust, and transparency that about the schools being able to do the critical work that they have to do, and that requires really working together, parents, educators, community. So that kind of parent-teacher teamwork, absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Number 3, we have to make sure that kids feel safe and welcome, that they feel like school is a safe place, a welcoming place, and then I would layer something else, a joyous place and an interesting place.
Yeah.
Because if kids then say, I feel safe, I feel welcome, I'm going to school because there's something interesting there, then all of a sudden they'll get their mojo back and the learning back. And so we will be dealing at the same time with the emotional, social, and academic issues. And then number 4, we got to deal with all the challenges like the shortages and the other challenges, because we're not going to have a teaching force if we don't deal with them, because just like nurses and other health professionals and emergency service workers, and is that teachers really, they're at the end of the rope. They're burnt out. They're really stressed out. So those 4 things are kind of what we need to do this year. So, for the rest of the year. So, on safety, what we've tried to do from when we saw the Omicron surge is to say we tried to size up. What's the transmissibility?
Yeah.
What's the virility? Those 2 were really important questions. And what we found out, I spent an hour on the phone with a top South African epidemiologist the middle of December, because what we found out, and this is probably the most important thing I'll say to your audience, is that whereas Omicron's very transmissible, and including kids, this myth that kids don't get COVID, so don't worry, it was actually a disservice to a lot of people, including getting our kids vaccinated now. But what we found out was very, very, very transmissible. But if you're vaccinated and boosted, you don't get seriously ill or, God forbid, die. And that was key.
Yes.
That's key to being able to open schools and keep them open. Now, the other things that are key are that you need to see where the outbreaks are, and you need to see if people are sick, and that's why the rapid tests were so important and why we have fought for them. And frankly, because it's so transmissible and because so many kids are not vaccinated, that's why a well-fitting mask became important, and ventilation. So what we basically said for this month is that get vaccinated and boosted. Let's make sure we have good ventilation. Let's have the rapid tests, the masks, and look, there may be times that a school closes because if you don't have 70% of your staff in the school or 50% of your staff in the school, you can't function. And just like with the airlines, you're not going to be able to function. So instead of pretending you can, we'll have some temporary pauses. And at the end of the day, we have basically run schools in January 95 to 98%. So here's this for comparison.
Yeah.
The last month of the Trump administration, when you had that fall, surge, 40% of the schools were open. This month, 98% of the schools are open. What is the difference? Both presidents, Trump and Biden, they both wanted schools reopened. What's the difference? The difference was Biden found a way to do what we asked. We asked Trump this too. Instead of doing it, he just spit on us. With Biden, what we said was, what Biden did was he gave us the resources and at least the safety layered mitigation, including the vaccines, and 91, 92, 93% of my members voluntarily got vaccinated before mandates. So for parents who are listening, we want schools to be open. We want them to be safe. Safety is the way to keep them open, but that's only the first step. The second step, the more important step, is how do we help your kids recover? And there's a bunch of emotional, social, academic things we know what to do.
I was about to say, Randi, we don't even know the long-term mental health impact of all of this on these children. We don't know. We don't even know.
And that's part of the reason why the number one support we need to do right now is that you've heard me and others talk about community schools and wrapping services around so that you have the infrastructure of services, not just, oh my God, there's a need, let's find it.
Right.
If services are regularly available, like Cincinnati has a direct relationship with the mental health facilities in Cincinnati. That way, it is part of what you can schedule.
Part of the ecosystem, and it's being proactive.
Exactly.
You need to be proactive, right?
You need to have guidance counselors and nurses in school. You can't, you need to have a small enough caseload so when, Randi is acting out, when something triggers, you need to be able to deal with it. You need to be able to help resolve it. You need to have kids feel safe and welcome. And then, there's a bunch of academic things, but it starts with making sure that kids are interested in something and feel valued and they feel valued and they feel like school is interesting. So that's why today, Secretary Cardona did a speech today. One of the most interesting and I think important things that he said was that every single child should be able to have a co-curricular activity like music, like art, like sports, like something that they like, oh yeah, I want to come to school for
Which
that.
makes you keep going back.
Exactly.
It's very Pavlovic in that way, right? And it was certainly played that role in my life. Listen, I can't believe the hour is gone, and we could have just kept going for hours. First, because I love you and I admire you and I respect you and I'm so proud of you and I celebrate you and I affirm you. And I know that millions of people do as well. And we thank you, Randi, for your leadership and for the difference you're making in millions of people's lives.
Thank you.
Thank you for being my guest.
And Mo, can I just say thank you to all the teachers and education workers who are out there. They are doing amazing, amazing work. And on their behalf, I say thank you.
They're true heroes, Randi. Thank you.